Welcome to Finding Path, the series where we build your favorite characters in Paizo's Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We have a few rules we'll be following with these builds, so be sure to check them out in the description. Today we're going to be building Ryuji Sakamoto, aka Skull from Persona 5. A phantom thief of heart, Ryuji is easily my favorite character in all of Persona 5, just barely squeezing by Makoto for best girl. Before we get started, after this point, I'm going to be showing scenes from the later parts of Persona 5. Seriously, if you haven't played it, I'd really recommend checking it out. However, I won't be putting in anything new from Persona 5 Royal, so if you haven't finished that yet, don't worry. So, let's begin. Ryuji has a simple set of skills that should be fairly easy to replicate in Pathfinder with a few ways to do it. Strong physical stats, some basic spellcasting, and sneaking and thieving abilities, Ryuji is a character that anyone would want in their party, if not for anything more than comic relief. Also, again, before we begin, a little aside for this specific build. In Persona 5, the Phantom Thieves only have powers in the cognitive world, and are just normal everyday teenagers in the real world. We're going to be combining the best and worst aspects of both worlds, giving the real Ryuji the cognitive world's abilities, using his persona as a base for stats rather than an actual character. First, let's set up some goals for playing him. During combat encounters, Ryuji is, as I've said, the physically strongest in the party. Captain Kid, his persona, has the highest endurance stat and second highest strength stat, losing only to Yusuke's Goemon. Ryuji is a physical attacker and good setup character, buffing his teammates, taking hits, and dealing big physical damage with a bludgeoning weapon. He also has some very weak magic, the weakest in the game in fact, so we'll show that in this build as well. Also, Captain Kid has the slowest agility in the game, but this is because of Ryuji's self-image. Because Kamoshida broke his leg, Ryuji still believes himself slow, so this is represented in the cognitive world by Captain Kid's low agility. In reality, Ryuji is probably the fastest of the Phantom Thieves in the real world, even with his injury, so we're gonna give him some extra movement options. Finally, Ryuji talks a lot of crap to intimidate shadows, it just doesn't always work. But we'll make it work here against normal opponents. During social encounters, Ryuji is actually a lot more useful than people give him credit for. Ryuji has a personality that makes him fight for what's right, so an intimidation check here and there would be in character if he's doing it for the right reason. He's just never had the power to back it up before. Though not actually great at deception, Ryuji has somehow managed to keep his identity as a Phantom Thief a secret, which is incredible considering how loud he is.
For real?
Finally, Ryuji can use connections and sometimes the internet to gather info to find baddies and corrupt adults to take down. During adventuring, Ryuji's primarily a comic relief character, but a secondary strongman to a fighter or barbarian. His strong acrobatics and athletic skills will let him overcome any obstacle, and his ability to follow orders, even complex ones from Joker, will let him follow any experts in any activity. Since Joker isn't here, by the way, we're gonna assume that Ryuji is actually a great thief. He's just outshined by Joker. So, yeah. Sneaky time. In downtime, Ryuji keeps busy by finding new targets, practicing his running and, well, school I guess, but that's not as interesting. Nor does he really pay attention to it, so the library is out of the question. We'll find a few ways for him to earn money that still make sense for his character. A sneaky phantom thief who takes down the corrupt world from the shadows? Yeah, no one's surprised. Ryuji's a rogue. So, here is our level 20 character sheet for Ryuji. Now let's go over some decisions I've made. If you want to follow along, as always, check out the link in the description. First off, the obvious question. Why a rogue and not a fighter? Rogue fits more thematically in the story of Persona 5. The primary reason, however, setups. Fighters are good solo carries that can take out a field of people by themselves. Rogues, on the other hand, on top of being a bunch of reliable d6s of damage, have a lot of ways to help the rest of the party effectively land hits and impair enemies, which is very in character for Ryuji and most of the other Phantom Thieves, who gang up on humongous monsters 4v1 style. However, we still want a strongman, so we're gonna make Ryuji a ruffian rogue. The ruffian bracket prefers more brute strength and underhanded tactics to gain sneak attack and deal damage, which is perfect for Ryuji. This also allows us to make our key abilities strength instead of dexterity. Speaking of stats, I prioritize in this order: strength, dexterity, constitution, charisma, and then, wisdom and intelligence could be 0 if you wanted. Ryuji is a physical fighter, so of course his physical stats are his strongest. Strength helps with damage, dexterity helps with defense and sneaking, constitution just keeps you healthy. Intelligence and wisdom are low because Ryuji dumb, man. It's one of the reasons I love him so much. I can relate. Charisma, however, is higher than expected. Since Persona are the rebellious willpower of a user, being able to summon one requires a lot of strength of character to fight back against society. Also, I know will saves are a thing, and are connected to wisdom, so there are different types of will. Don't worry, charisma works. Wouldn't you trust that smile? When using ability points, just stick to strength, dexterity, con, and charisma. For ancestry, we're making Ryuji a human with half-elf heritage. I slowed it down because for some reason I couldn't say half-elf. Half-elf will give us access to much-needed human and elven feats, and I personally think it works great thematically. Sure, Ryuji is human, but he's ostracized from society because he's a punk, abused by Kamoshida and his deadbeat dad. He also forms a bond pretty quickly with Joker, another character who was abused by the system that was supposed to protect him. Honestly, I think it just works. For background, I thought about giving Ryuji Entertainer, Gladiator, or Acrobat for his running history, but with how overworked he was, I decided to go with Laborer, as it works better for stats and shows how hard he worked for Kamoshida, despite the abuse. Eventually he snapped, attacking Kamoshida, and was fired, or worse. He eventually joined the adventuring life to protect others like him. People were asking me to include alignment as well, so sorry I missed that for Diddy and Darius. A few people believe that Ryuji is chaotic neutral, believing that the Phantom Thieves themselves are more neutral than good. But I genuinely believe that he is chaotic good. Though he does get wrapped up in fame of being a Phantom Thief, he does his work as a Phantom Thief for the greater good, helping society become better so that the people won't be abused by adults like he was. Protect the people who can't fight back. That's a pretty selfless reason. He does, however, stick to a strong moral code, so he's not pure chaos. That said, the Phantom Thieves are rebels, so by definition they're chaotic. It's a tough one, and the internet has been fighting about it for years. The alignment system is not perfect. However, Ryuji is. He's a good boy. Next up, some skills we want to work on, and boy howdy do we have like a million of them. Rogues get a bunch of skills and even more skill feats, so apologies that I won't be going over all of them individually. If you have any questions, I'm in the comments all the time, feel free to ask. Ryuji's key skills will be acrobatics, athletics, intimidation, stealth, and thievery, and those should all be self-explanatory. Acrobatics and athletics from his running days. I don't think he did hurdles, but just go with it. Acrobatics works. He's a thief, it's fine. Intimidation for his punk attitude, and stealth and thievery for his Phantom Thief lifestyle. Deception in society will also help him in keeping your identity secret and finding your next heart to steal. For throwaway skills, because again, we have like a million of them, pick up Arcana, Diplomacy, Occultism, Performance, and Survival. You can switch these out for any other skills as Ryuji isn't particularly good at any of them, it's really just for gameplay purposes. Finally, let's talk equipment. As a ruffian, Ryuji can properly use strength-based weapons for his sneak attack, and can wear medium armor. For weapon, a club, mace, or any other simple bludgeoning weapon works perfect. Personally, I'd say Morningstar, as it does an okay 1d6 points of damage and can be used as a bludgeoning or piercing weapon, depending on what is needed. Since, again, there are no completely legal firearms in Pathfinder's 2e, we'll do what we did with Diddy Kong and just use a crossbow for a gun-like weapon. Heavy crossbow is the closest thing to shotgun that we're going to get. Unfortunately, it just isn't that great, as it takes so long to reload. Use it sparingly, however, and it should be fine. For armor, since we get access to medium armor, hide is the most obvious choice, letting you keep your sneaky abilities without interfering with your strong defense. For magic items, there's nothing specific for Ryuji that we really need. The only thing I could think of is not really interesting. It's the Ring of Energy resistance with an electrical resistance. You can even pick up a Ring of Fire resistance to represent Satan Taisei. After that, power up your weapons and armor and I guess items that just make thieving easier, like skeleton keys and climbing ropes, should be about it. Ryuji's magical abilities are weak at best, and they come from his persona anyway, so feel free to buy whatever looks fun. So, did we reach our goals? For combat encounters, Ryuji is a fast and powerful control rogue who can protect his friends and deal with enemies through debilitations, intimidation tactics, and high damage with his sneak attacks. First, we'll start talking about his tankiness, cause boy can this rogue take a hit. If he even gets hit, that is. Between nimble dodge, a high class armor of 41, and deny advantage, it's going to be hard for most physical attacks to hit you. When they do, however, toughness and a high constitution count will keep you in the fight longer than most rogues. Though 8 per level plus con for health isn't great, Ryuji's still pretty close to passing 300 HP, which is unreal. Bounce back and die hard will also make it really hard for Ryuji to flat out die. He survives worse on palace runs, so why would a sword to the chest stop him? Incapacitation and debilitations are also a strong point. When combat starts, use Battle Cry on a nearby enemy to immediately make them flat-footed for an easy sneak attack. If you kill, this can lead directly into a "you're next," intimidating another nearby creature, who you can then, again, beat the crap out of. Rinse and repeat. Master Strike and Debilitating Strikes are also free on flat-footed targets, which should be easy to achieve with the Coercion abilities in Dread Striker, allowing you to mess up any enemy, setting them up for an ally even if you don't kill them outright. I think this sums up the teamwork aspect of Persona 5, while also the try to kill the enemy as quickly as possible so you don't take any hits so you can keep exploring vibe. Intimidation is a really big part of the build, and actually turns Ryuji from a goofy good boy to a terrifying monster. Watch Your Back, if used successfully, can be used in tandem with Scare to Death to really mess with opponents. Watch Your Back lowers will saves against fear effects, and well, Scare to Death can kill. It's not super in character for Ryuji, but it is fun. Ryuji is also a huge team player, with feats like Reactive Interference, Leave an Opening, and Opportune Backstab. He can save his fellow teammates or have a perfect showtime attack to deal with some major damage. Team with a fighter for an opportune backstab on a flanked boss? They won't know what hit him. Finally, magic, I guess. The Sorcerer dedication made the most sense to me, as we really wanted a charisma-based character, and Persona is an internal manifestation of will, so it's not fully represented by the Sorcerer's blood magic. I don't know, man, it's the closest thing we could get. If there were 5e, maybe Warlock would have worked, but Sorcerer, we got Sorcerer. Sorcerer's fine. Honestly, I only picked the Sorcerer dedication because I wanted a small amount of Persona representation. Captain Kidd has the worst magic stat in the game, so honestly it works. That said, Electric Arc and Shield are pretty good spells. Electric Arc is actually thought to be the strongest cantrip, as you can deal 10 d4 damage to 2 separate targets. Shield is a decent defensive spell, but it kind of loses to Nimble Dodge later on. However, it can be situationally used as a defensive option if you have one move left and just aren't sure what to cast. Ryuji's spells are all offensive. He doesn't actually learn the defensive Rakukaja spell lines, but we'll just say he borrows it from Makoto. They're good friends. Now, let's talk out of combat. In social encounters, Ryuji actually plays on the defensive, protecting his Phantom Thief identity and doing what he can to subtly get info out of people to find his next target. If a stronger hand is needed when Joker fails his diplomacy check, Ryuji can use intimidation to calmly persuade the target to listen again. If need be, Ryuji usually has knowledge on the going-ons within certain cities, so if knowledge on society is needed, he might be your man. While adventuring, Ryuji's legendary perception will help keep a lookout for dangers and traps, though his low wisdom might lead him to be a little worse than other characters. Despite that, Ryuji is a good leader when it comes to sneaking with quiet allies. He is, alternatively, a good follower with keen follower. Remember, though Joker led the Phantom Thieves, so Ryuji was following him, we'll say Ryuji is still good enough to lead a team of misfits himself in the Pathfinder world. Ryuji is also an athlete and acrobat, with skills like Cloud Jump, Quick Jump, and Powerful Leap. There's not a jump he can't make. If not, Catfall should prevent him from taking too much damage, even if he falls flat on his face. Just see what I did there? It's a all-out attack animation. I don't know how clear that was. And finally, in downtime, Ryuji in Persona is just a student and spends most of his days practicing to run, working out, or goofing off. However, he still finds time in his super busy schedule to find information on adults to target next. Using Streetwise and gather information, Ryuji can find baddies, big and small, to change their heart. Or just steal some supplies for the next adventure, depending on just how evil they are. If you're looking for a safer way to earn money, however, participating in games of strength, if they exist in your DM's world, are your best bet. So, yeah. I'd say this is a good, albeit a bit strong, representation of Ryuji's skills. He's a little scarier than he is in Persona 5, but that's only because we know his whole goofy self. Any monster you find in a cave will only know Skull, and from there, they will only know pain. The build is really well-rounded actually, but admittedly not too far off from a standard ruffian build. The dip into Sorcerer is a fun surprise, but otherwise there's nothing too crazy here. Just remember, you're the tankiest of a bunch of teenagers. Don't go throwing yourselves in front of a blast just because your leader is in danger. Though you could show up next session completely unscathed for a cheap fake out. Just watch for Haru's left hook. I've heard it's mean as hell. Thanks for checking out my Pathfinder 2e Ryuji Sakamoto build. Sorry this one took so long. Between real life and vacation, planning the rest of my content, it just kind of got away from me. I don't know why I thought I could do this weekly, I just don't have the energy or time. That said, I look forward to the next one, because we're going to be making one lucky boy trying his best to fight off despair. Or is he the unluckiest? It's kind of hard to tell sometimes.